Welcome to Quisitive Unite. For our session today, entitled You've Been Hacked, Preventing Data Breaches with Effective Cloud Security, we'll talk about the things that you can do, your team can do, to help protect your data from a costly breach. A few reminders: by all means, ask as many questions as you'd like. Just type them in your chat panel, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. Sometimes we'll answer it right then and there because the question is aligned with the topic we're right now talking about. Sometimes you might be anticipating where we're going, and you might ask a question that we're covering in another slide. We might kind of stall the answer to that question till we get to that section, and then some questions will be maybe best answered towards the end of the session, but by all means, we're going to answer all your questions, and we'll make sure to do that right here in the session today. All of the materials and what we cover and the notes and things that we present that I'm going to present to you, these will all be made available to you, the recording, the materials after the event. So don't worry about having to take notes or take screenshots. All this stuff will be afforded you at the end of the event. And lastly, but not leastly, we're going to do a post survey to see, how did we present? Did we present material that was meaningful to you, helpful to your awareness and growth? And so there'll be a survey at the end, and in addition to that, we're going to give away a few prizes. So you can see 3 Amazon cards, an espresso coffee machine, and a Wine of the Month subscription. So by all means, stick around, complete your survey, and that will enroll you for the raffle that will give away these awesome gifts at the end of the event. Now, without further ado, I'm your presenter today. My name is Ed Higgins. I head up our security and compliance team here at Quisitive. I'm part of the team. I work with customers every day. I'm a former Chief Information Security Officer for about 10 years. My entirety of information security and compliance spans the 38 years. So my job is to help understand our clients and work with them, bring forward and help them solve some of these challenges that are, part of our day-to-day world that we live in. I've been with Quisitive for the last 7 years, and I came here to be part of our security team and to help create our service offerings and, like I said, work with our clients every day. So I'm really thrilled to present to you today, and I hope you get a lot out of this session. A little bit about our company. Quisitive, and you may have seen this in other events that you're participating in today, but Quisitive is a 900 customers annually. We're a business that operates predominantly across the United States and Canada, as well as with some footprint in international spaces. We're comprised of about 800 employees, and our service offerings cross the entirety of the Microsoft ecosystem, the Microsoft Cloud. What makes us unique is that we're a full service partner. We do that consulting, we do those implementations, and we have ongoing support services, managed services, if you will, but we're very unique in how we bring that to bear, where we partner with our customer and be easy to work with. We have a lot of different ways that we help clients, and we'd love for you to be able to leverage us in your business as a partner. We're cloud experts, as I mentioned. We span Dynamics 365, all of the Microsoft or Office 365. We're well versed in that space. And then, of course, Azure. Azure is the environment where maybe some of your databases or your servers exist in that cloud. We bring that expertise of having done 20,000s of projects to help our clients not have to reinvent wheels. And we're focused on those business outcomes. And so we often work with our customers to consult that and to define how we help them and serve their needs. As a 30-year partner to Microsoft, we've been working with Microsoft exclusively. That puts us into a 0.01% of their partner ecosystem. So we're in a really small group of partners overall out of Microsoft's 60,000 plus partners. We're in a very small group of those that have that unique footprint. We have what are called partner designations that are kind of advanced specializations that allow us to get into modern work or Azure or business applications or security and so forth. Over on the right-hand side, we've gotten many, many accolades and awards along the way, namely those Partner of the Year recognitions. We're a consistent player in that. And notably, since this conversation is about security and compliance, we've been a repeat Microsoft Partner of the Year for security and compliance for the last several years. It's important to start, with some measurements. You can't fix what you can't measure. And this is a measurement. And these are statistics from the industry vantage point. These are things that you could look up on the internet yourselves, but they're noteworthy because they need to make us think about the security of our own environment, your own environment. So if we know that 94% of all malware infections start with email, and we know that that same percentage of like security breaches may start with a phishing attack. It's not a secret that more than 90% of all security intrusions or maybe not a data breach, but a compromised user account or stolen data of some form happens via phishing. It's very important to understand that, because it lets us think, where should we focus our time and our budget? And that's one area. The other thing is, these breaches occur very frequently, in the globe. Every 39 seconds, there's a victim to a data breach or a phishing attack. Someone either clicking the link that triggers a malware event that gets recorded. So it's not just the IT help desk ticket, it's something that can be measured. So every 39 seconds for that to happen is kind of scary. We've got to do a better job. I mean, I'm a security practitioner for many years, and admittedly, we look at this and we go, what are we not doing right? What are we not doing, period, that can help resolve some of these things? Well, we're doing a lot of things right, but we need to, be as fast as the bad actors who are refining and developing their campaigns to harm us. Harming us might be taking over our network, or stealing our data, or encrypting all of our systems so that the entire operation is shut down, ransomware. It is estimated that in US dollars, most of this presentation is going to reference US dollars. So our Canadian friends, please think of it as dollars in US dollars, and other internationals, that this is what we're talking about. We're going to approach by 2025, which is just next year, that we're going to hit $10.5 trillion, not billion, but $1 trillion annually in the cost of cybercrime. So those are huge numbers. So, what I'm trying to say there is cybercrime, or cyber organized crime, is a very lucrative market for those actors, and it's costing us a fortune. The cost of a breach, the cost of a data security breach in most environments across the globe is $4.45 million. It's hovered around that for the last several years. That is the cost of fixing it, the cost of the forensics, the cost of protecting the victims with, credit protection, and, the cost of sending out those notifications. All of those things have a cost. In some cases, it's the fines that come along with it. And when you add all that up, on average, the average cost of a breach in US dollars is $4.45 million, a very big number. Just as noteworthy, if some of you are in the healthcare vertical, the healthcare space, a hospital or a clinician environment, the cost of a breach that affects more than 500 individuals, so 500 patient records or more compromised, the cost of that is $10.10 million. It's something that we'll see. Maybe the cost of fixing these problems is often a lot less than the cost of any one occurrence. That's the point there. We could be leveraging some of that avoidance of a loss towards fixing some of these things. And what I'm going to do is show you how we can take some action on fixing those things. So again, why should we care? 28 plus, more than 28 billion records are stolen across, all markets, all sizes. And the irony is that's just since January of this year. So pretty scary. That's a lot of data records. that have been subject to a breach of some form. You see some examples over on the right. I'm not going to read these, but they kind of get into what those types of attacks look like. For those of you that like, what does that mean? How does a bad actor harm me? Well, that's some examples of how actors work. Nation states, conglomerates, or organized crime that have made business into made cybersecurity intrusions part of their business model. And there's five common areas that tend to seem to contribute to this happening over and over and over and over again. And those common areas are social engineering. Social engineering is me sending you a phishing email and you clicking on the link, or me enticing you with a text message to respond to my with some information to me. Then there's weak and stolen credentials. If you're, say most people don't think about the password as being the lifeline between you and a bad actor. And so they might kind of relax their guard, let their guard down, and use a password for multiple accounts. The same password for multiple accounts. You may use the same password for your bank account or your Facebook account or your work account. And if you do that, if someone gets in and steals your password for, say, your Facebook account, then they might try your work account. And if you're using the same password, they might get in. And so weak and stolen credentials, and bad actors will sell those credentials on the dark net, the black market, if you will, for money. And other bad actors will buy them because it's kind of helps them jumpstart attacking you. So weak and stolen credentials is another one. Too many permissions. You come into a company, you're a regular user, but it's hard to manage. Someone gets promoted to a new job and they need more levels of access, so you get more levels of access. But what if you move to a different job in a different department, and who's looking to revoke those accesses? So often things get a little bit neglected over time, to be frank. And sometimes it's just like convenience. Let's just give everyone access because we trust each other. And that is an area that, both it doesn't help with compliance because it kind of violates compliance requirements, but at the same time, it's easily subverted. So, having too many permissions is another area. Backdoors or application vulnerabilities, weaknesses in the tools that we use. Sometimes you see that there was a vulnerability in an application, and a bad actor exploited that vulnerability and took ownership of a server, got access to the server, and then that's their first step to establish what we call a beachhead to being able to do harm or take over a network. And if they take over a network, it becomes a very difficult day. And then lastly, malware, malicious applications. Sometimes we as users might install an app we find off the internet on our smartphone. And that very app could be malicious in that you might think it's like an email tool, but it actually could be a data stealing tool. And so it might give you email as a feature, but behind the scenes, when you authenticate to the workplace, that email tool is now stealing all your SharePoint and OneDrive and file storage data, or web applications. It could be stealing a lot of things based on the application's authentication that you just gave it, your username and password. So that app has the ability to act as if it were you navigating your workplace. So lots of things to think about, but there's 5 common areas that seem to bubble up over and over and over again. And we see these things too when we do security assessments. So kind of noteworthy to kind of put it into context of, this is academics, Ed, but we've done 1,200 security assessments, and we often see these patterns in those very assessments as well. And it's good to identify those things, because once you identify them, then you can fix them. So what can we do about it? This is where we graduate to, all the doom and gloom is behind us now. We get it. There's a why. This is why we need to affect it. But what can we do? So assess your posture. Look at where you are. Where are the weaknesses? Do we have a plan to fix those weaknesses? Number 2, to choose a security framework. Us in the security, and even IT knows this very well. IT and security people understand what security frameworks are because it has the technical controls, the administrative controls, the policy. It has the configurations of the servers and settings to help carry out a good baseline security posture. Frameworks helps us put in those processes to help make sure that all systems and all apps and all identities are protected, no spots are missed, so to speak. You want to develop, number 3 is you want to develop a baseline or basic incident response plan. And you ought to test it. So it's kind of part A, part B. But an incident response plan is where we all develop a sense of, if God forbid something happened, how do we even approach addressing it? Not speaking to the public. Well, that is part of an incident response plan. But how do we address it from a taking action as quickly as we possibly can to contain it, to mitigate it, to learn from it, and so repeat the cycle, and then testing that plan so we develop what's called a muscle memory. You never go out into the play field without having rehearsed a play. You practice, and so incident response planning is no different. So let's explore these things now. Let's take a look deeper into what these things actually mean. So this first area is choosing a framework. There are many frameworks, good frameworks to choose from. Sometimes there are some that might better fit your business than others. Some might be a little bit more arduous. Some are less than what you need. So kind of finding the sweet spot. We help clients look at what would be the best framework to choose by understanding your business, understanding the regulatory requirements that you have, and how you operate can help us, or you choose the ideal framework to fit. I've shown a few here so you can kind of get the idea. The NIST, or National Institutes of Standards and Technology, is predominantly a US-based agency from the government, but there's good practice in some of these special publications, they call them, that are good control frameworks, good security control frameworks that you can download, configure your environment to meet those, and even get certified as being kind of compliant with ISO, with NIST, 800-171 or 800-53. There's lots of them, but those are two predominant ones from the NIST family. Cybersecurity framework. The Canadian government has published an excellent. It's called the ITSG 33, revision 33, and that is a IT and security lifecycle management. Same idea. Good governance, good security controls around, that people can pick up and apply to your, technology and administrative estate around your technology assets that you leverage. And then, of course, in the international space, ISO makes up that family. The security ISO standard is ISO 27000. So you see a few pictures. You can go to these links yourselves and kind of explore them. Incident response life cycle. It is a life cycle because, it's not if, it's when we have an incident. It's going to happen. Maybe it's not a full-blown breach, but a user account gets compromised. That's an event more than it is an incident. But what if it took off? What if malware got installed on the user's machine and started to spread? What are some ways that we can very quickly act on that? So again, developing an incident response plan and then exercising that plan periodically goes a long way. So I wanted to give you a kind of a noteworthy one. Again, as far as good handbooks are concerned, good guidance, the NIST has a great one that you can download. It doesn't cost you anything. It lets you see it's very comprehensive. You might not need as many things that are called out in it, but it's a playbook. It's an incident response handler's guide on how to deal with incidents. And like I described, creating, table exercises and testing your incident response plan to develop that muscle memory. this actually goes into that type of stuff. So it's a great example. It's one we use to help develop incident response plans for clients. And it might have a couple of benefits to you as well, where fringe benefits, where if you have cybersecurity insurance in your environment, your business has purchased a cyber insurance plan. Sometimes it's a requirement to have an incident response plan in place to even qualify for cyber insurance. And sometimes the act of creating one can help lower your premium. You wouldn't want to learn how your plan is constructed right in the heat of the battle, right in the middle of an incident. So, question, would you want to do this on the fly without a plan in the stress of an incident? Because they can be very stressful. The answer is no, of course you don't. So, developing a plan that talks about preparation. What do we do if this happens? What if we do if that happens? And then for each of those what ifs, how would we do an analysis to determine, is it real? Is it where is it spreading? Is it spreading? Is it, what's going on? Detection and analysis. And then once we identify what's going on, we need to contain it, eradicate it, and recover from it. So that kind of has three things, but it makes up the fourth pillar. And then post-incident activity is, it's going to happen, and you always want to leverage, did we learn something from this? Is there something we could have done better? And then, it may involve, like, do we need to retain evidence that we might have captured throughout? So it's not just all about lessons learned. It actually might have post-incident work, like, is this thing going to go to court? Are we going to prosecute the actor? And if so, we need to save that evidence that we captured. And so it is a life cycle, and you need to kind of look at it that way to be effective. So testing your incident response plan, a table exercise is something that could be done, 15 minutes each month with the full team. That's not a lot of time to ask to just run through a scenario, have fun with it, make up a scenario that might seem to be that's something that might happen in your business. We created a scenario a while back for a client who had a reception area in the front lobby, and that person at the front desk was actually doing some HR work on a PC that was provisioned to the person in the lobby. Well, the what if scenarios: what if an actor came in and stole that PC, just unplugged it and walked out? Is there something on that PC that could be related to human information, like personally identifiable information and so forth, or bank account numbers? So it created an opportunity to explore the what if someone physically stole a PC from the front lobby. So things like that you can actually explore, have fun with, making up those scenarios, and then how would we approach tackling it and applying those lessons learned, and then capturing the documentation. So it always goes a long way to kind of exploring how to test your plans when you create them. The best way to deal with this is to prevent it from happening in the first place, right? These are the 5 most common causes. Again, remember: social engineering, weak and stolen credentials, too many permissions, vulnerabilities in our applications and servers, and then malware, malicious applications that are designed to do something, steal data. But these things are things that we can prevent breaches with. So the number one, these are now 5 things that you can do to eliminate 90%. 90%. It's a little bit is going to go a long way. 90% of the surfaces that a bad actor can operate can be avoided by implementing these 5 things. So how do we protect against social engineering? Email hygiene, having a tool in our environment to reduce the amount of phishing emails that come into our inbox. That's a big one. Microsoft Defender for 365 does that. It does a very good job of it. Defender for Endpoint can see a ransomware or a phishing attack that is being carried out and block it, and even protect the individual's PC from becoming infected with something like that in real time. Do end user training. If not, we should, where IT periodically tests the user community. Awareness goes a long way, but the tooling to prevent email from even, phishing emails from even getting to the inbox of an end user, of our business users, those go hand in hand. We want to eliminate, number two, eliminate weak and stolen credentials. We should never be using a password for anything other than one account. And we should always be using, either two-step or multi-factor authentication. It's the same thing. It's referred to sometimes as different ways. MFA, sometimes you'll hear that, is multi-factor authentication. You bring something and you know something. You know your username and password, and you bring a fingerprint. You bring an application like the Authenticator app on your smartphone. When a bad actor kind of uses a stolen credential, password, username and password to try to break into your environment, and that user they're targeting's phone pops up a multi-factor notification message and says, go to your authenticator and type in this number or type in this code. The user will say, I didn't initiate something, and that's the red flag right there. So they won't. And as a result, the bad actor can't get the last credential, the other factor, to let them take it, get into the account. So MFA kills the bad actor's ability to do damage to users. So you can kill 90% of the bad actor's ability to take over a user count just by implementing MFA, not just with your admins, but with every user. The other part is, you consider getting away from passwords entirely. Biometrics, fingerprints, facial recognition. Some of you may have, there may be privacy concerns in your country and in your company. That's okay. You can avoid the use of the fingerprinting if that's a kind of a taboo topic. But like Windows Hello can facilitate that. Your Windows Hello has a localized thumb reader. You could institute, these, secure key fobs. Like I've got a YubiKey right here in front of me, and that is my multi-factor to authenticating into my work environment. And you can use that as a strong credential, or you can use your Authenticator app. And then we always have to have a password, but let's not use a password. Let's make up a passphrase. So bullet number 3, I won't read it to you because it would be a very long conversation, but the gist of number 3 there under, and this is fairly small writing, if you use a password, then make it a passphrase. If you take the first letter of every one of those words in the sentence, and with uppercase and lowercase, and you put in the exclamation at the end, you've got a pretty solid passphrase. So over on the far right of that sentence, you see the bold. The passphrase is, it would take a bad actor 800 million years to decipher that passphrase with a brute force attempt. So it's pretty solid that they're not going to break in using techniques like that. But often we don't. We pick a birthday, we pick a name, or we pick something that's been stolen in another breach, and we use that same password for our workplace, and that's kind of not cool. So think about doing those things to eliminate the weak and stolen credentials. Too many permissions, everybody having super user privilege. IT, sometimes it's kind of convenient if I have to do this job that requires me to have administrative. Well, why wouldn't I just have that permission permanently all the time? And while that's convenient and it might save us some, a couple of seconds in time, it's costly. It could be devastating because a permanent administrator is what a bad actor is going to target. So a bad actor might come in as, breaking into a regular user account, and then they do what we call lateral movement, moving around your environment, finding out who your admins are, and then targeting them. But just take away all the global privilege and use what's called privileged identity management. It's a tooling that lets nobody have privilege, and those that are allowed can request it. It's granted. They do their administrative, power user job. And then when they're done with that job, it takes it back down to regular user. So no one ever has permanent global access or administrative access. That's a best practice. That's an industry best practice. It's something we deploy by the hundreds for clients, and it's a kind of a good thing, because if a bad guy can become admin in your world, they can own your network, and that is not a good day. So we try to avoid that one if we can at all possible. And again, that underscore, every user should be using MFA. That kind of goes without saying. Vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities happen. Every piece of software is not perfect, and every piece of hardware is not perfect. And sometimes these, actors out there identify those imperfections and they aim to exploit them. That's a vulnerability. And so, security vendors, technology researchers, security researchers, those that investigate security breaches that happen, they identify that it happened because of a vulnerability. And those things get published and added to a repository. And there are some tools that we can run in our environment day to day that help us see where these vulnerabilities are, to patch them, or to isolate the server until there's a patch available. A very good tool is Microsoft Defender, with the vulnerability management pieces. That built into Microsoft Defender is the ability to scan the device for these vulnerabilities and unnecessarily opened ports and services, things that just cause actors to see these areas, these little cracks in the armor, for them to take advantage of that. So, applying a good solid vulnerability program will help mitigate these exploits that happen using the weaknesses that might be in servers or applications that just exist. And it evolves, because one patch is created to close one vulnerability, maybe a new vulnerability is found. And so it kind of is a life cycle in and of itself. To prevent malware, there are lots of tools out in the industry, antivirus, anti-malware protection. You can choose whichever you want. We're showing a bunch of Microsoft capabilities that are all connected, all integral with one another. And so with that, you can really harden your environment from being susceptible to things like malware, and even something that might be, this might get into the advanced kind of dialogue a little bit, but a 0-day attack is a type of attack on a vulnerability that hasn't been figured out yet. So a vulnerability pops up, and some bad actor sees it, and they or a researcher sees it, and maybe a bad actor might find that and say, wow, now I know how to break in. There's no patch for it yet. And when that bad actor publishes or starts to use that attack against that undocumented vulnerability, it's called a 0-day attack. And that's kind of scary, because there's no fix for it. And so the only way to be able to see that is if I detect a behavior that doesn't look normal, then isolate the server. And these technologies that I'm showing right here can achieve that, can help. So even in the prevention of a 0-day attack, we can kind of reduce that surface that a server could be vulnerable. And that's just by implementing good technology. And I hope your team can do the 5 things to prevent it. Doing those 5 will take away 90% of the attack surfaces that actors harm thousands and thousands of clients every year. There's things that our team can help with. We have a lot of offerings that range from assessments to projects to implementations to the leverage of automations and Microsoft Copilot and the generative AI. Security leverages a lot of those capabilities in being able to automate the detection of a bad behavior or a bad actor targeting your environment and automatically block that. So we leverage all of these capabilities. We help clients see those value through our assessments. We do consulting workshops. We do workshops just like this session to share with you things that we can do, and even to the extent of 24/7 monitoring, or bringing our team together with your team to partner on implementing some of these things. So I wanted to mention that we do this for a living. There's an awful lot of benefit we bring to clients, and if there's value to you in some of these things that I've shared with you, our team can kind of rally around that and help you out. Uh, I wanted to take the stop here and provide this link and take a moment to thank you for your time. Uh, if you want to learn more about, Quisitive's security services, please take a look at this QR code or the link that's above it and visit us. And as a reminder, all of your if you have a question that you haven't typed in here, and we're going to get to those here in a minute. If you haven't typed it in, or a question comes to mind, or you just didn't want to share your question on this forum, you can use any of these links to reach out to us from in general or from this workshop. So we'd like to thank you again for your time. Please double check in on your survey. Make sure you complete that survey for the gifts that we're going to be raffling off here at the end of the session, and also get in touch with us. We hope that this was valuable. I hope my time was useful to you and provided some benefit, and I look forward to potentially visiting with you in the future. So thank you again for your time, and I hope you have a great day.